Good afternoon, everybody. I can see there's a few people in the room already, more and more of you joining. Welcome to this InLeeds session this afternoon around building your experience. We're delighted that you've been able to join us. We've been joined by some fantastic guests this afternoon that I'm really excited to introduce you to. But before I do some introductions, I wanted just to find out more about you and who we've got in the virtual room with us today. So I'm just going to launch a very quick poll just to see where you've joined us from today. So we've got students and graduates from lots of different universities joining us today. So we just want to know, which university are you joining us from? So if you could just let us know in the poll that I've just launched. If you're a current student or a graduate, all are welcome in this session. So let us know where you're at and we can perhaps tailor some of the advice if we know who's here. And are you thinking of staying in Leeds when you graduate? That's everything. This is what this event is about showcasing you opportunities, and some opportunities right here on your doorstep. So I can see quite a few of you filling that in so far. That's fantastic. So we seem to have quite a few students, but some graduates joining us as well. So that's fantastic. So we'll tailor advice to those that are in current study, but we'll also be giving advice to those of you who have recently left higher education as well. So keep those answers coming in. It really helps us to tailor the content of this session. If you've got any questions that you'd like to put to the panel at any point during the sessions, please use the Q&A button that you'll see on the bottom toolbar. Read through any questions throughout as they occur to you, and I will put them to our panel. Please don't leave this session with a question unanswered. This is a safe space for you to ask questions and explore your options, really. So please do take advantage of this opportunity to ask our experts today. So with no further ado, let me introduce you to our panel today. I'll go around the virtual room and introduce everybody before we dive into some of the questions. So Neve, would you mind just doing a introduction and telling everybody who you are and what organisation you work with?
Yep, sure. So hi everyone, my name is Neve and I'm the Head of Placements and Student Opportunity at Leeds 2023, or sometimes called Leeds Culture Trust, which is the charitable organisation that we working under. And I suppose my role within Leeds 2023 is very relevant to today's session, but I will be able to share a little bit more about our kind of overall organisation as well. Some of you fingers crossed, have hopefully heard of us already. So we are kind of the year of culture for 2023. So across this year, we're running lots of signature and partner creative and cultural events, performances, activities, sessions, discussions, any type of activity. There's something happening, all relating to kind of arts and culture, and also linked with partners and organisations in Leeds. So as part of the organisation, we have a huge amount of talent working with us, from creative producers, production team, marketing and communications, finance and operations. We're a whole big organisation, and we've lots of opportunities for students to kind of get involved and utilise us for the kind of year that we're here. And to gain experience and build some early career or kind of add-on skills and development. So there are loads of different ways that you can get involved with us. Obviously, we have a massive volunteering program. Our website is a really good one-stop shop, just Leeds 2023. If you Google that, you'll find it. And then my role specifically is helping to organise students or graduate-specific opportunities. So we will have placements, internships, short-term work experience, and also industry insight kind of engagement opportunities. So no matter kind of where you're looking to gain experience, if you're interested in the arts and culture, brilliant. But equally, we do have a whole business and other kind of teams within our organisation. So there should be lots of ways to get involved across the year. So yeah, we're here for the whole year, and yeah, hopefully you'll be able to get involved. Hopefully that helps, Maria.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you. Brilliant overview. Thanks, Niamh. Next on to Sophie. So Sophie Lang is joining us from UniBeez. Welcome, Sophie.
Hi, thank you. So my name's Sophie, and I'm head of partnerships at UniBeez. In terms of role, that kind of covers everything and anything in terms of our student base and our employers. Just to give you an overview of what we are, we're an on-demand talent marketplace for students and grads. So that means that we have hundreds of businesses who sign up to our website who are looking to hire students and graduates for short-term work, internships, placements, and perm hire. The benefit that they get is obviously they get access to you guys, like digital natives, the emerging workforce, and some really, really skilled individuals. But for you guys as a marketplace and a student base and the next kind of cohort to come into the workforce, there are opportunities across the board, across all business functions. So no matter what you're looking to go into, whether it be marketing, whether it be computer science, whether it be finance, there's opportunities for anything that you might want to try your hand at. There's short-term work right the way through from 10 hours worth of work. It could be one project right the way through to your perm hire, or it could be an 18-month placement. So if you're in your second year and you're looking to get a year's worth of placement because you need to do that for your course, there's those opportunities. There's opportunities for 6 months work. The minimum you'll get paid for any project through our site is £12 an hour. So it's a fair wage for what you're doing. And the minimum amount of work you're going to get is 10 hours worth of work. So whether it be that you're not quite sure what you want to go into, or you're looking for internship opportunities, there's hundreds of things that you could be doing. It's free to sign up, completely free to create a profile as a student. And we've got a whole team on hand who will help you build out your profile, who'll help you decide what skills you've got, help you build out that experience. And if you've got any questions in terms of like interview process or interview prep, or how best to go about engaging with employers, we've got a whole host of resources as well that we help with and we supply. So there's, I mean, probably the hardest question I get is what can you do? And the answer is pretty much anything, but there's loads of stuff that we've got and that we help students with. So
thanks so much, Sophie. Next, Charlotte, we can come to you.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Rainey. I'm part of the careers team at Leeds Trinity University, but I'm currently seconded to the Graduate Skills Project, which is a really exciting project across the whole of West Yorkshire. It's a partnership between all 12 of the universities and colleges in the region. And we are supporting graduates who are un- and underemployed. That means you either haven't found the job you want, or you're in a job, but it's not really the graduate job that you hope for. And we are putting on, we've done some, and we're just developing a really full program now of short, mainly online courses that will offer you things that we've discovered in discussion with graduates and employers that, you know, that might be barriers to work. So confidence skills, understanding how to articulate your skills, match them to what employers say they want. And also we'll be doing some courses where we can tell graduates about sectors you might not know about, but where there's amazing jobs and opportunities. So keep an eye out. It is all advertised through the West Yorkshire Combined Authorities Skills Connect website.
Thank you. And you might say I'm just bobbing a few useful links in the chat to all these different organisations. So there's lots of information on the links that I'm posting in the chat there if you want to find out more about any of the organisations you are meeting. I'll keep sharing a few more as we're chatting through. And last but not least, Henry, if we can come to you.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm Henry. I'm the Education Partnerships Manager for the UK and Europe at a company called Forage. Some of you might have come across Forage before. We used to be called Inside Sherpa, so you might have heard of them too. And essentially what we do is we work with top employers to create what we call virtual job simulations. And really the purpose of them is to just give you a bit of an insight into what it's actually like to work at some of these top companies. You know, a few of the examples, so we work with a lot of the big law firms, we work with a lot of the big banks, so HSBC, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, things like that. And we know how incredibly difficult it is just to get onto some of their insight programs, of which the whole purpose of them is to see what it's actually like to go and work there. So we really want to try and break down as many barriers to accessing these organizations as possible. So all of the 250 plus programs that we offer are completely open access. So there's no application process that you have to go through to take part in any of them. And they're also completely self-paced as well. So we're incredibly aware of the fact that you're all very busy with, you know, lectures, seminars, essays, exam revision and things like that. So you can spread it out however you would like to. And obviously the benefit on the employer side is that if you go through their application process and have been through one of their programs, not only does it give you something to talk about in the interview stage, you know, your intent for wanting to go and actually work there, but they also can see that you're clearly, you've got that high intent to actually enter that industry, and you've spent time learning about them as an organisation as well. And everything that we offer for students is completely free as well. So no cost associated with any of it, which is obviously a big benefit.
That's lovely. Thank you, everyone. And I think what's come through there is the flexibility of what's available with everybody here. And that's the reason I brought everyone together today, because a question that we often get asked by students and recent grads, particularly final years, is around, you know, how can I build my experience in a flexible way that fits around my studies, that maybe fits around a part-time job that I've got. We're mindful that a lot of graduates continue on in, you know, working in their part-time job over summer, and it becomes quite difficult to balance it all. But there is that real appetite to build relevant skills, it builds your experience, try something new, but it can feel like a challenge, and it can feel a bit overwhelming, like you have to commit to a 6 months internship or you know, something that's full time. So that it's great to hear more about the flexible ways, the flexible opportunities that exist for actually building your experience in different types of ways. But I'd just be interested to learn more about, you know, what your advice would be to a final year student or a recent grad who is worrying about that at the moment and thinking, how do I build my experience, or how do I know if I've got enough experience? Because that's also another thing that, you know, do I ever feel that I've got enough there to showcase to an employer? So what would your advice be to somebody either worrying about, you know, not having the time, or worrying about being able to commit to work experience, or equally worrying if they have enough? You know, when's the end point come that I feel that I've got enough to apply? I don't know whether anyone's got any thoughts on those questions. Sophie.
Yeah. I think just from personal experience, you never have enough. You never know everything that you're ever going to know. So that learning is continuous. I just think any advice I could give is as soon as you are met with any opportunity to learn anything, whether it be work experience, whether it be volunteering, whether it be something that you can get that's even just doing a project for one person in a business setting, you're going to learn how that business operates. And it could be that you work for a one-man band or a complete startup that's literally just launched, or you could be working for a massive corporation, again, doing something just short term and that one-off project. The skills that you'll learn from every interaction that you have with every employer, I think is just skills that you just take it on, whether it's feedback and hasn't gone quite how you thought it was going to go, or whether you've done a project that was completely different to what you thought it was going to be. Every opportunity that you get, you'll learn and take something from it. I think my advice would just be, if you're met with those opportunities, take as many as you can. And I wouldn't worry about who they're for or what business they're with or what role it's in, because no matter what it is, it's going to build you a network and a bank of skills that you can take to anything and to anybody.
Thanks. I feel that's great advice. I can see lots of nodding. Neve, have you got anything to add in there?
I was just going to add in what Sophie mentioned, kind of to add on to that, because I think it's a really valid point that a lot of the time people forget that experience that you've built in maybe smaller opportunities, even throughout your studies, are transferable as well. And I think a good kind of starting point really is almost figuring out kind of your skills development so far, and where you're kind of missing maybe some of you know, a more developed skill set, and trying to match maybe the experience that gave you that skill, because it might not necessarily be a work experience. It might be, yeah, a voluntary thing, or it might be that, you know, you used to you know, mind kids or something, you know, as part of a family environment, and so all of those things are really transferable. And so it's, I suppose it's starting at a point at which it's really good to see, what do I actually need to build, and what have I really already gained and can actually match with a specific example. And equally, like Sophie said, around that kind of breadth of networking that you've already developed, you know, anything that you've engaged in, I would definitely say keep those kinds of connections, and don't kind of completely get rid of the connections that you've built, because oftentimes, especially I suppose in the industry that I'm working in the arts and cultural sector, often those connections are where new opportunities develop. And sometimes it's just about reaching out and saying, you know, asking, is there anything that I can get involved in? Because most people, you know, are wanting to give those opportunities, just trying to fit and match. So I think my advice would be, first decide, maybe make a list of some of those examples and where you maybe need some skills, and then also keeping those connections and potentially asking for further engagement opportunities.
Thanks, Niamh. Charlotte, have you got anything to add in there?
One good bit of advice I'd say is, if you have an idea of what sort of employee you'd like to work for, or what sort of job you want, start looking at job adverts and seeing what skills they're asking for. Because when they either ask you to send in your CV or application form, they will be marking your application against that list of skills. So that's quite a good little tip on finding out what you might need examples for. So it might be that, you know, I don't know, you want to work in marketing and they all talk about good communication skills. Well, think about it. Have you got experience and examples you can use about your communication skills? And if not, so I think Sophie and Niamh both said, go out and start finding those examples, because this is the time to start gathering, get those examples before you even apply. And my other big bit of advice is start a list on your notepad or in your Google Drive or whatever you use, and put down experiences and start matching them against skills, because I guarantee I still do it. You know, I've got 25 years of work experience and I still struggle to remember examples. Write them down, good and bad. So if you have a particularly awful day, I don't know, maybe you work in a cafe and you have the most awful customer comes in, that I promise you will make an amazing example in an interview about when you've had to deal with a difficult situation. But when you're sitting there in the interview, you probably won't remember it. So write it down, write good, bad, what did you do? Don't be afraid to make yourself a little bit of the hero of the story. You know, never lie, but it's about they want to know what you did. And just build that document. And mine follows me throughout my career now. I still add things to my list.
Some great advice there. I love that. Be the hero of your own story there. I really like that. Yeah, I think it's, you know, it's often a worry as well, isn't it? That you know, if I get a new experience, if I do an internship, if I put myself forward for an opportunity, what if I don't like it? What if I fail at it? But, you know, this concept of everything is a learning experience, you know, reframing that to first attempt in learning. I think, you know, something else that I'd pull out there is that we don't always know what we want to do until we try something. You know, I think there's a lot of worry with final year students, new grads around entering the workplace thinking, what if I don't like it? What if it's not quite perfect? This concept of a job having to be perfect. And actually, the more experience you get, the more things you try, the more sort of risks you take in a safe space, you know, through doing a short-term internship, through engaging in something like grad skills, through doing an online internship. That will really help you to try new things out in quite a safe way. where you can take those risks a little bit more. You can learn more about what you do want, what you don't want. So that's why it can be really good just to try things out in, using, the opportunities available through the organisations that are here today, because I think what they all represent is quite a safe space to try new things out, because they are geared solely for students and new graduates. So that's worth bearing in mind as well. I mean, in terms of the flexibility, so just going back to that and how you manage building your experience as a student or new graduate. So we've, in the introductions, we brushed upon a little bit just how, some of the flexible options available, but I just wondered if we could explore those in a little bit more detail. So Henry, you mentioned that there were some opportunities to try out virtual work experience. So you don't even have to leave your bedroom necessarily to engage in, which cuts, significantly, cuts down the sort of time, the travel time and other things to make it a real flexible option. Can you tell us a little bit more about the flexible options available through Forage, Henry, that students could fit in around their studies and other commitments?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's the reason that we have continued to keep everything virtual even after. So we were founded just before the pandemic, and then obviously the pandemic happened and virtual was sort of the way forward. But we've been committed to sort of continuing that because of the benefits that we've seen for the students, just in terms of that accessibility point. It's so much easier to not only be able to sit down and do it in your own time, but also to be able to sit down and do it from wherever you might be. If it's an organisation that we work with out of their London office, it might not be the easiest for students to get down to London to go in and do an in-person placement, or it might not be possible for them to go and spend a couple of weeks there if they've got a job that they're working at the moment. So really we wanted to try and make sure that there were as few barriers to access as possible. So all of the content that we have on the site is completely asynchronous. So none of it is live. So there's no sort of risk of you missing anything once you've enrolled in one of the programs, you can work through it completely at your own pace. So if it's the case of sitting down and doing the full 6 hours in one day and treating it as a work day, then you can do that. But equally, if you're only able to dedicate 20 minutes, half an hour a day to it for a couple of weeks, then you can also spread it out that way, and it won't impact your participation on the programs in any way. And I think one of the sort of really important additions to that flexibility point around the virtual programs is there tends to be a little bit of sort of hesitation among students as to the sort of impact of virtual placements and what employers actually think of them. And that's why we've recently been doing a pretty important piece of work looking at the people that the employers that we work with are hiring and how many of them have actually gone through the programs that we run. So to avoid too much sort of self-promo and things like that, when we compare a student that has gone through one of our programs to a student that hasn't, the student that has is 2 times more likely to be invited to interview and 5 times more likely to receive an offer from that employer than a student that hasn't gone through their program. So it really goes to show that the employers are putting a lot of weight on these programs. They're really seeing the benefits for the students. And again, one of the biggest things around that flexibility point on the employer side is sort of the wonders that does for their ability to hire a really diverse range of candidates. Candidates that from their traditional hiring routes, whether it's going onto campus and things like that, they might not have had access to, because students might not have been able to go along to careers fairs because they might have been working, or they might have had caring responsibilities at home and all sorts of things like that. So it's while it's really obviously incredibly beneficial for the students, it's allowing these employers to get access to the students that they might have otherwise not been able to access traditionally, which is obviously a win-win on both parts.
Thanks, Henry. And that sort of loops back to that question at the start around, when will I have enough work experience? And I think, all the organisations represented here offer sort of that opportunity to get some short-term experience, build your skills through really flexible, manageable work experience opportunities that are offered in a variety of different ways. What would your advice to a student be who's worrying that actually, because we often hear, I've only done 10 hours, I've only done some volunteering. We always hear this word, I've only done this, I've only done that. In your experience, and just building on what Henry says, what are employers looking for in terms of level of work experience? Because I think there's often a worry that you know, particularly I hear this at Leeds Beckett, that employers expect you to have 2 years worth of work experience, and students like, well, I've spent 3 years at uni and I came to uni when I was 18. How on earth am I meant to build this work experience whilst also doing everything else? In terms of your experience working with students and graduates, what do employers typically look for? Because actually what we find in the careers team at Leeds Beckett is that actually employers aren't looking for that level of work experience when they're hiring new students and graduates. And it may not be quite as much work experience as students sometimes automatically assume. I just wondered if you've got any thoughts on that at all.
Yeah, so I think they're really looking for, when we sort of boil it down, we really look at 2 things. So the first being intent. So how can you demonstrate that you've considered and thought about that industry or that employer? And that can be, you know, I think that's the part that a lot of students think they have to really build on a lot more than they already have. I think that's where we get into that trap of students thinking, okay, I need, you know, 1 year, 2 years experience in this industry to demonstrate that intent. But I definitely think from the employer's perspective, they are also incredibly aware of the difficulties of getting experience in some of these industries, and the fact that there just aren't these opportunities out there for students to go and get really extended periods of time working in the industry. So I think on the intent point, it can be, you know, it doesn't have to be massive. It can be a short sort of 10-hour virtual placement. It can be some of the sort of short programs that obviously everyone else on this call and their organizations run and things like that. I think it's just more about having something that you can go into the interview, or you can write your application and say, the reason that I want to work in this industry or work with this employer is because I've done this and I really enjoyed it for these reasons. And then on the sort of flip side of that, you've got the employers also looking at the skills part. And that, I think, is the area that a lot of students tend to sort of underestimate their value in. I think a lot of students often try too much to think of skills that are really directly related to the industry that they're going in, and sort of forget about some of the other really great skills and experiences that they've got. Employers absolutely love transferable skills and being able to talk about completely different experiences that you've had that will be able to translate into the workplace. And the example that I think it was that Charlotte mentioned earlier about working in a cafe and having a really difficult customer. You know, we sometimes have difficult customers. I won't name drop any of them in here, but you know, sometimes we have to have difficult conversations. And if you've had experience dealing with a difficult customer in a cafe, you know, it all helps. And you've had that experience of, you know, just keeping calm and walking through the steps and things like that. And one of the things that I actually did when I was looking for a job before I worked at Forage, so I'm from a legal background, is I just looked at some of the LinkedIn profiles of people in roles that I was looking to go into. And doing that, I was just able to go, you know, they don't actually have that much more experience than I had when I was at that application stage. You know, they hadn't gone out and been working in industry for 2 years. They hadn't gone and done volunteering in all these countries all across the world and things like that. And I think that was that sort of preconception that I had or misconception that I had about it. So yeah, just taking a look and seeing, okay, yeah, I've done quite a lot of these things, or I can demonstrate these skills and experiences in different ways from my own personal experiences, I think is definitely quite important too.
Thanks, Henry. Yeah, absolutely. I love that LinkedIn tip. That's something I often suggest to students as well. Like, look at, you know, use the alumni tool on LinkedIn, find out from graduates from your university where they're working, if there's a particular organisation or sector that you want to work in. You can use the alumni tool on LinkedIn to find out graduates from your uni that are working in that. And again, it's like an online CV, isn't it? So you can see their work experience before. And like you said, you might be surprised on the work experience that they needed to get their first foot on the ladder. I don't know that Neil, you got anything to build on that?
Well, I was just going to say, I think what Henry said is really important to kind of bear in mind, especially where, you know, that quality of experience is always going to be more beneficial than necessarily the quantity. So I think where having a diversity of experiences is helpful, and where, you know, having engaged in different kinds of things is great. It's also about that confidence and having that internal kind of self-confidence to say, you know, this example does actually apply, and kind of going into detail really on, you know, recognizing where that example actually applies to the industry or the role that you're going for. I definitely know from kind of interviews and applications that I'm reviewing, it's those examples of people who said, you know, something completely different, but it applies here because I know that, you know, your industry also engages with the public or also has kind of customer relations, and it's kind of combining both that intent and skill in terms of, you know, showing that passion. And I think one thing I would definitely say within kind of the industry that I work in, that is being sought after, is that that enthusiasm and that passion for you know, that particular employer or that particular industry. I think you know, it's so often that running, you know, an interview and asking someone why they want to work in your organization, and they just haven't been able to demonstrate that they've done some research. And I think that's such an easy way to show an intent to an employer that, you know, I've done this. Even just a quick review of your website and pick one or two things out that I'm really, really keen to engage with. So I definitely think there's kind of a combination there, but like Henry said, sometimes it's about putting forward a little bit of confidence in yourself that, you know, you might not have this entire diverse breadth of different experiences, but actually the ones that you do have the quality of you know, skills development that are relevant to that role. And it is hard sometimes showcasing that confidence, but I think sometimes those lists help for people, or kind of just, you know, doing spider diagrams or something that really, that you put down on paper that yes, you have, you know, those relevant or transferable skills.
Thanks, Niamh. And Sophie, just to come to you, on the UniBeez platform, students and graduates are asked to create a profile where they talk about some of their skills. Can you give some advice on you know, how a student or graduate might approach that using the platform, particularly if they're feeling that actually I really want to get some opportunities through your platform, but I'm not quite sure and how to obtain those because I'm feeling a bit underconfident about my current level of experience?
Yeah, sure. This probably boils back to what Henry was saying about being aware of skills that you've got from experiences that are completely irrelevant maybe to the job that you're looking to go into. One of the current trends that we're seeing with a load of employers who are looking for students and grads through our site is that actually there's a much heavier weighting on aptitude, capability, and drive to do the job than have you got experience in this specific field already. One big example of that is we get requests all the time for people needing like data analytics, and it could just be that it's a 20-hour stint that they need somebody to do a huge data cleanse, but they're a finance business. Just because they're a finance business doesn't mean you have to be studying finance to do that role. You could be studying biology, chemistry, business, anything where you're doing data analysis all the time, but because it's science-based, intrinsically you might not be thinking a finance role is for me. Actually, those skills that you're learning on your course on a day-to-day will expertly feed into what you need in order to do the job at hand. So the first bit of advice for me would be, don't ever underestimate what you're doing just because there's a job maybe in an industry that you're not aware of. Skills are completely transferable no matter what industry or what role that is. And the other thing is to look at not just your studies, not just your experience, but what you do as hobbies. So for a big thing that we see a lot of people in like sport who are doing incredibly well in sports teams, big part of sports communities at university, actually we're seeing a lot of people are really good in like more competitive roles, maybe like sales, or where you're really driven to, it's quite a competitive environment. Or we're seeing people who are able to build a following on Instagram or TikTok because you enjoy blogging about food and restaurants that you go to. You've got the capability to build an audience of 10,000 people, and you're not studying that, you're studying something completely irrelevant. You could go into a marketing job, you could do a marketing degree. It doesn't have to be something that you're studying that you've got experience in. Have a think about the wider experience that you've got, hobbies that you're interested in, things that you do outside of work and outside of studying, because every interaction you have at any point will be building that skill set. We would say when you're building your profile on UniBeez, put anything and everything that you have into your profile, because that's how we connect you with those opportunities. So for example, if I've got a skill set and I've put put that into my profile, the first jobs I'm going to see on UniBeez will be the top matches for me. And that might educate me in, okay, I hadn't even thought about a job in finance or in a lab or something else. I didn't know these jobs would be tailored to my skill set. So put anything and everything that you can think of. And if you ever need any support, it's just reach out, whether that be to us, to anyone on this panel, anybody in that sort of field, or peers, friends, family, because oftentimes they can fill in blanks where you might have a skill set that they can see that you can't necessarily see. So
thank you. Thanks, Sophie. And Charlotte.
Yeah, I think what you have to remember is that it's a risk for employers to take on new staff. So, you know, they want someone who's confident, who's good at communication skills, who can cope in a crisis. And I suppose in an interview you can sort of assure them, no, I'm really good, you know, I'm really good in a crisis, don't worry, I'm really good at communication. But actually they've just got your word for it. So that's what the experience is for, and that's why they want the experience examples. So they don't necessarily have to be, as all the others have said, exactly relevant. They can be gained through your hobbies, your sport, your volunteering, your course, your part-time job. And it's just to show that you have faced these situations before and you can do it. Someone made the point about a different type of work experience. As part of my role, I do a lot of work with employers, finding out what they want from graduates. And I had one on a panel and someone said, oh, I've been offered the job. I want to be a project manager, but I've been offered a job in a call centre to sort of see me over. And I don't want to take it, I think it'll look bad on my CV. And the employer was like, no, you would go straight to my interview list. They love people who've worked in call centres because it shows that you are good on the telephone, you know, you're good communication, you're used to working to targets, you're used to working quite a hard job. So that sort of job that people didn't want to take on as a part-time job, as a stopgap, because they thought it wasn't quite relevant. Actually, employers, this is a big digital marketing agency in Yorkshire, a huge global corporation. And I said, no, that your CV would immediately go top of our list. So think about what your job and what your experience can offer. And it might be something that you don't see straight away. And then the other thing I wanted to point out, and I think, was it Neve who mentioned it? It was either Neve or Sophie, about the show you've done your research. Every conversation we have with employers say what impresses them most is knowing you've done your research into that business. Someone mentioned have a look on LinkedIn. That's quite good. If you see you've been, within reason, but if you've been sort of looking at employers, looking at the business on LinkedIn, you've read their website. Employers, even small companies, put a lot of information out there. Check the social media, show that you want to work there, that you're worth taking a risk on. And that, again, that always impresses employers.
Thanks, Charlotte. And just to, building on that concept of, perhaps wanting to go into something different, because that's not unusual. And we often get approached by final year students, new graduates who really worry about, wanting to do something different. They'll say, look, I chose my course when I was 17. I chose it because it was a subject that I liked, but I didn't really think about what that was going to lead to, or since choosing that subject, I've changed my mind. I know I don't want to follow that, but then I'm not quite sure what I want to do. Will employers think that's weird? How do I gain experience in another area when, I've studied maybe psychology and I want to do something different, but I don't quite know what else I can do now? What would you, are your, are your opportunities open to new graduates? Because often we find that, students will wait till they get to the end of the course, exhale, think, right, I've handed in my final assignment, now what? Are your options, are your opportunities open to new graduates? And what would your advice be to somebody who is in that position and worrying about making that change?
So I'll kick off. So our opportunities are open to absolutely anyone. So whether you're a student, graduate, or even if 5 years time you want a change of career, then you can still access everything that we offer. So it's not in any way linked to you still being a student or you still attending a university or anything like that. But to sort of answer the question around students that have maybe gone down one degree path and are considering switching to a different career, I think that definitely compared to what the position was 10-15 years ago, it's not so much that employers now are are even not finding it weird that students are changing, but in fact they want to encourage it, and they really like hiring students that have changed and are doing something different from their degree. So we work with quite a lot of law firms here in the UK, and the vast majority of them hire around about 50% of their graduates from law degrees, and the other 50% come from all over. You know, you've got students that have done history, students that have done sociology and things like that, but then you've also got a really large portion of STEM students. And that's something that they're really trying to increase, and it's something they tell us all the time is, you know, how do we hire more STEM students? Because there's just that different way of thinking. You know, if you study law at university or if you study a STEM subject, you think slightly differently. The way that you approach projects and problems is slightly different, and that is hugely beneficial for these organisations to have that diversity of thought within them. And yeah, so it's not even so much that they see it as normal now; they're actually wanting to encourage it. So I think, yeah, just take a look at, again, it sort of goes back to that thing of seeing if there's someone that has done the same thing that you're looking to do. You know, if you can find someone on LinkedIn that maybe did your or a similar course to you that has gone into a career, you know, how did they do that? What did their progression look like? Reach out to them if you've got any questions. You know, a lot of people that are active on LinkedIn are always happy to help out with things like that and can provide you with some pointers. And again, the sort of platform and the programs that we offer are really sort of tailored towards that more sort of early stage discovery. So if you did want to take part in one of our law programs, you absolutely don't need a background in studying law or working in a law firm. We like to say that they're pretty sort of accessible to everyone, just to sort of take that first step into the industry and sort of first step in that transition over from what you studied into the workplace.
Thanks, Henry. Sophie.
Yeah, very similar. Same thing. All of our opportunities are completely open to everybody to do anything. So whether you're studying, like I said, a STEM course and you want to do a sales job, you can apply and you can do that. I think one of the pieces of advice I could give is don't be scared to try anything new, or don't be put off just because you're studying something that doesn't look relevant. We actually had a young lad who was studying law, his whole aim was to go into law and be a lawyer. Started working for a client through us, doing market research, sales, business development, is now in a commercial sales role at IBM. So he completely did a 180, and just through that experience actually figured out that he wanted to do something else. So my first piece of advice would don't be scared to do anything. All of the opportunities that you could do through UniBeez, you're paid for. So in terms of, just in case anyone's worried about that like trade-off of, oh, if I'm going to invest so much time into doing something that I'm not sure about, you'll get paid for any opportunity that you do through the platform, which I know is quite a driving force for a lot of people. I think cost of living, we don't hear about it enough, is through the roof. So you get paid to do anything, which is an absolute benefit. Whether I'm trying something new and I'm getting paid for it, there's almost no downside. But I just say don't be scared to try it.
Thanks, Sophie. And Charlotte, I just wanted to come to you because I know Grad Skills is a little bit different in the sense that it is exclusively for graduates and set up for largely for graduates who are maybe thinking about, who maybe are a bit more unsure about the steps and wanting to try something new. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about this? Because this is just for graduates in who are living in West Yorkshire. So you could be studying in Liverpool, but if you want to work in West Yorkshire, this is, for you, or graduating from any of the Leeds universities and wanting to stay in Leeds. So could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we've been running some courses. We've just finished one about career confidence that just goes through who you are, what you are looking at, what you're looking to do, mainly reassuring graduates that, they can achieve things and helping them match their skills to the skills that employers are looking for. And we're just developing the main program at the moment, which will be launched in the beginning of March, where there'll be a series of courses where you can follow through, and it's going to be things like, one of the modules is really good, it's called Finding Your Why, and it's understanding who you are and what the potential is in. The course is sort of, the program is really for graduates who have got a bit stuck, who aren't sure what they want to do, and you are not alone. There is the amount of people who have done a course and realise that's not what they want to do, and they want to do something completely different, and then get a bit stuck. And it happens to so many people. There's very few people who do a degree and then go into that exact job. They are in the minority, I promise you. I think the problem is that it's the usual social media, isn't it? People just show off their best lives. You only hear about the graduates who've got that wonderful graduate job earning, you know, a massive salary. You don't hear about the other 99 people who are still living at home and struggling. But actually that's the majority. So I think any of you who are in this position, don't worry, you know, you're not alone. And I think that changing and wanting to go into a different sector or a different course, that's absolutely fine. And that's what a lot of employers look for. They just want those basic skills. And I think if you can sort of own it and say, you know, I did a sports therapy course, but realised it's really not for me, but what I am is interested in, I'd love to go and work in the tech sector. Employers will value that and they will appreciate that. And I think it shows that you really want that new career because you've had to stop, think and pivot. Just one of the best examples about the wrong courses. So I'm also part of the careers team here at Leeds Trinity, and we have a big children, young peoples and family institute, and all of our students go on placements as part of their course in their second year. And every year we have a few who come back in despair because they've realised they can't bear children. You know, they've been on their course and it's just, I've spent 2 weeks, it's horrendous, my life is over. It's like, no, it's fine. Thank goodness you discovered now and not when you go into a graduate job. And every single one of those who've come to that situation has gone on to get a brilliant job, a brilliant graduate job. So I think it's back to the example we had before, wasn't it? Even if you think it's the wrong thing, you know, portfolio careers is the future now. People don't have a job for life or a career for life. So don't be afraid to have a few twists and turns.
Thanks, Charlotte. And Niamh, just wondered about your opportunities with Leeds 2023. Are they open exclusively for students or can new graduates access them as well?
Yeah, so open to new graduates, and probably worth people knowing that whilst we put out kind of the general volunteering and more broad call-out opportunities on the main website, that I will be sharing kind of specific student graduate opportunities through various careers teams in all of the institutions. So whichever one you're from on this call, you will have some share with your institution, or we have kind of another interest form that you can sign up to, which the careers team will share your way. So yeah, absolutely open to graduates. And I think just to add on to Charlotte's point there, because in our organisation, I think it's an excellent example that there's so many people who have come from so wildly different backgrounds and have come together to kind of form, you know, a team that have these different experiences. And I think it's a great example of your ability to be adaptable and flexible if you have gone for this like 180 turn, like Sophie said. And I think it's about framing it in a positive way rather than thinking that was, oh gosh, a negative situation now that I've changed. But I think definitely within most sectors, but I know especially within the arts and the creative industries, because there's not necessarily always that, oh yeah, if I study this, I become that. But I think the range of skills and experiences that you have means that you are quite an adaptable and flexible person. So I think I echo what Charlotte said about, you know, don't worry and don't be afraid about making those changes, but putting that positive spin and being able to confidently say, I've learned from it, and you know, this is why it actually applies, and it's made me a better person and a better kind of prospective employee for your organisation. But yeah, so all of our opportunities open to graduates, and we're very happy to have people apply who come from, you know, you don't have to be with an arts and culture background at all. So if you want to try out working in this sector, this area, some of our opportunities, yeah, will be quite a good way of testing it out.
Amazing advice, all. We have actually come to time that has absolutely flown for me. I could have chatted for so much longer. There was some brilliant advice. I hope lots of reassurance for those that have joined us today. Thank you so much to all our panelists for taking the time to take part in this event today. I hope you all check out what's on offer through the different organisations represented here today, because I've put some links in the chat for you to follow, for you to stay up to date and explore some of the options that are presented. As you can see, there's so many different opportunities for you to build your experience, and so many different ways that you can do that in a flexible way, whether that's now while you're studying or whether that's as a new graduate. So hopefully it's provided you that reassurance that there are options out there for you, no matter what your starting point is or no matter what your current circumstances are. We've put a link to a feedback form in the chat. We'd be really grateful if you could fill that in, because that gives us a guide as to any other sessions that you might want to hear about as part of the InLeeds initiative, and what you thought of today's session, so we can continue to build up this initiative as we move forward. There is another event happening in about 10 minutes time, so if you want to stay on the call, that you're more than welcome to join in that event. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. Thank you to our panelists. Take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.